Hey, everybody. We're live, and
I don't know
Sarah's
why-
not here.
What?
I mean, she's here on
Oh.
the Hangout, but she's not here.
Not
in LA.
here.
I was like, did it not work? The only thing, Tom, is that you cut out a little bit here and there, and it's okay because I can pick it up. I just don't want my audio to do that.
Yeah.
It's okay to you.
I mean, knock on wood, right?
Yeah, okay.
Yep.
It cut out a little bit
finally
for
have-
me now, but I'm in the Paris office of DTNS, so
Right. It
Correct.
could be trade embargo on some of Sarah's packets.
Is it just me that's cutting out? Because Patrick, you just cut out a little bit too.
well, not at all anymore. So I don't know what's happening.
Okay.
I think we'll just have to
The
deal. Patrick
machine.
did cut out for me for a second there.
What?
One of those delay, like, what? And then it caught up.
Like, oh my God.
Okay.
And then
Where'd
Rob
you
just
go?
disappeared.
I'm back.
He's back.
I was testing out my disappearing superpowers.
It was
worked.
good. It worked.
Yep. I now how to vanish. I now know how to vanish and how to become silent.
I wish
Very
I
impressive.
knew how to become silent. I think a lot of people wish I knew how to become silent.
Sybil mute button.
You mean a lot of people
Yeah,
wish they knew how to make you silent? Or-
Yes, that's kind of where I was headed with that.
No,
I
I
mean, a lot of people can be.
wish they knew how to make you never shut up. The opposite.
That sounded weird.
That was a good
Yes.
attempt, though. I appreciated the effort.
Thank you. You're welcome.
All right, are you guys ready?
Yeah, I'm just making sure I'm killing it.
Ha, so
Any-
hesitant. Is what we answer on this show, people. Have you learned nothing? I get
No,
excited when Tom.
not a thing.
All right,
I'm ready whenever you are, Tom.
let's roll then. Here we go. 3, 2.
The Daily Tech News Show is powered by its listeners, not outside organizations. If you get value from the show, consider giving a little back. As little as $1 a month keeps great tech news and analysis coming your way commercial-free. Find out more at dailytechnewsshow.com/support.
Daily Tech News Show for Tuesday, October 3rd, 2017. I'm Tom Merritt from DTNS headquarters in Los Angeles.
And in San Francisco on assignment, I'm Sarah Lane.
Patrick Beja coming to you live from the Paris international offices of DTNS.
Also joining us today is author of After On, Rob Reid. Rob, I didn't ask if it was okay to say where you were coming from.
I am beaming in from sunny New York City.
Ah, fantastic. So we are really spanning the globe. I mean, we're kind of concentrated on one continent, but we've got two under our belts here.
That's not too bad.
Yeah, we're going to talk about the Windows mixed reality announcements, talk with Rob, who's written a novel that involves VR and talked with some VR experts about his perspectives on them. Producer Roger Chang, are we go for launch?
Yes.
Let's start with a few tech things you should know. Former Intel CEO Paul Otellini died Monday. Otellini joined Intel in 1974 and was the company's 5th CEO from 2005 to 2013. He was the first CEO of Intel that hadn't been an engineer.
Uber CEO Dara Khosrowshahi met with Transport for London Tuesday. Uber and TIL called the meeting constructive, and more steps will be taken in the coming weeks to resolve the issue of Uber's permit to operate in London.
Sony Interactive Entertainment President Andrew House announced he will resign from the company after more than 20 years. Deputy President Tsuyoshi John Coder will take over for House effective immediately, though House will stay on through the end of 2017 to ease the transition.
He'll stay in the house. It's you, Sarah.
Is it supposed to be me? We're just still getting used to this. Facebook's Messenger Lite for Android, has launched in Ireland, the UK, Canada, and the US. Messenger Lite offers the core messaging features but uses less data. Messenger Lite is now available on Android in more than 100 countries overall.
Okay, doke. Let's get into some more top stories in depth. Well, shallow death. As part of the Waymo lawsuit against Uber, a report has been made public from Strauss Friedberg, a computer forensics firm, which was hired to investigate Otto as part of the due diligence that's needed before Uber would acquire it. Now, this report is a bombshell. It found that Otto co-founder Anthony Levandowski did access Google files related to driverless cars after he left Google, including some emails, but it did not show that Uber received or used any of this information. Levandowski told Strauss he found 5 disks of Google info from a Drobo he used at home, but he said he didn't realize he had them. It's from just natural business use when you're working from home, and he shredded them. So Strauss went to the shredder in Oakland, could not verify that they had in fact been shredded by Levandowski. The report also describes communications and behavior implying Otto employees were deleting information and communications ahead of and during Strauss's investigation. And keep in mind, Uber hired Strauss to do this. This is all part of a friendly negotiation. There's one story here that Levandowski emptied his trash while they were in the process of interviewing about what was on his laptop. Judge William Alsup has delayed the beginning of the trial until December 4th to give Waymo more time to review the materials.
This is totally insane. First of all, where's the shredder in Oakland? Do you just go and just start looking through stuff and be like
industrially shred stuff?
I have
in Oakland
been to that very facility. There aren't a lot of drive-through shredders, and if you want to get a disk really shredded, and I've done it a couple of times when I've had a laptop that I was done with, and I just wanted that disk to no longer exist or an external drive. As they age and they become obsolete really quickly. I've been to that place in Oakland, and they've got these big honking machines, and you can say, I want to physically see it get shredded, and you can see it get shredded. I'm not saying he actually went. There seems to be a lot of question about that. Actually.
I mean, could having been there, would it be easy to drop something off and not be tracked?
Oh, God, yeah. I mean, it'd be easy to drop off 5 disks and have them shredded and then sign your name illegibly, which is apparently what happened on the receipt that he presented. I mean, the fact that, he may or may not have brought 5 disks there says nothing about whether they were the disks in question or, it's almost like going to the dump in terms of its sort of aesthetics and, speediness, zippiness, utilitarian feel.
But you're supposed to get your name recorded in their ledger, whatever. Well,
I don't remember getting mine recorded.
Okay.
I also bought paper. Right. I had a bunch of old not tax stuff, but credit card stuff. And I just paid cash and got my stuff shredded and didn't have any burning need for them to know how to reach me in the future. And that wasn't, at least then, it wasn't a requirement.
I guess it's starting to be a little bit, if it was just that, it would be, yeah, sure, he could have gone there and paid cash and whatever. But it's also that, and the fact that there was suspicious behavior when they were interviewing them and deleting stuff. And it's starting to form obviously nothing definitive, but somewhat suspicious picture overall.
Yeah, and Google is Waymo is going to try to use that in court to cast doubt on assertions, but so far there's no hard evidence here. Right. So it'll be interesting what else they're able to pull out of that now that they have a little extra time.
Yeah, but it's juries and judges do convict on circumstantial evidence all the time. I mean, we're trained by TV because they say, oh, that's just circumstantial, to assume that circumstantial doesn't count for anything. But there are convictions on very serious crimes with major penalties that are done on circumstantial. I mean, one of the most powerful circumstantial cases here, or facts here, unless I'm mistaken, I've seen multiple citations that Uber actually negotiated the purchase of Otto before the guy left Google. So basically, like, you're working at Google, we're negotiating the purchase of a company you have yet to start for a staggering sum. They must have thought he was coming with something. I don't know.
So will a Waymo lawyer lean over Anthony Levandowski or an Uber employee, because Lewandowski's taking the fifth, and say, who ordered the code shred?
Well, we're on the subject. While we're on the subject of Waymo, in a longer piece about the company, The Information has some sources that say the company plans to begin offering service with no human test drivers in Phoenix, Arizona sometime this autumn. So truly autonomous vehicles. The article claims the engineers are against the accelerated timeline being pushed by Waymo CEO John Krafcik and parent company Alphabet executives Larry Page and Sergey Brin.
I don't know they can get approval to do this, even in Arizona. Can they?
Yeah. That was the first question that ran through my mind. This doesn't seem like this is the kind of thing that governments or administrations would, rush to approve.
I mean, Arizona's super friendly about this stuff, but
yeah, sure, but no human tests. I mean, no human test drivers.
I mean, they're doing human tests right now, but are those?
Sorry, I mean, no
human drivers.
Yeah,
there's a very pragmatic problem with this scenario, and this is just sort of a rumor, right? I mean, they haven't announced this. I mean, the very practical problem is every sophisticated observer of this industry that I've ever talked to has said when driverless is allowed, it's going to be allowed incrementally. Like it might be only in the daytime and only in these 100 blocks of a city that are extremely well known and no left turns. And then later, like, okay, sunrise and sunset. And then later, okay, another 100 blocks. There has never been a suggestion that they're going to just sort of throw open wide the service and allow driverless cars to take passengers without test drivers all over the place at once. And so if Waymo were to launch a service without having an enormous inventory of drivers to backfill. I mean, imagine if the customer service experience is, hey, I want a car. Oh, where are you going? And 19 times out of 20, or even 1 time out of 5, the answer is, we don't get to do that. So the notion of something launching in the near future with no drivers at all is just ludicrous.
The explanation for this could be closed course. This is going to be on campus, something like what Nutonomy's been doing in Singapore. That it could be not as much as it seems.
I love how the article, and yes, this is speculation, although the information usually has pretty good sources, saying that engineers are very uncomfortable with this thing being pushed by, the executives at Alphabet, just because of the, huge threat of imminent danger. When you think about a human not being able to override a car, it's just really hard for me to believe that Larry and Sergey are sitting in a room just being like, tell those engineers to shut up, let's just do it.
Imagine if you were going to the airport having just read an article about how all the engineers at Boeing were saying it's a really bad idea to ship this product, and the executive said, nah, just throw it out there. That would not be good marketing.
All right. Microsoft announced plans to close Groove Music. Microsoft will continue the service through the end of 2017, but is encouraging users to migrate playlists to Spotify. Music saved to OneDrive will still be available to users after the shutdown, and users who prepaid for the service past 2017 will be reimbursed. Microsoft launched the service as Xbox Music in 2012 and rebranded to Groove Music in 2015.
So I'm officially pouring one out for Groove Music.
I'm not sure I might anger some people here, but I'm not sure it deserves is it really, is anyone going to miss Groove? I mean, some people, sure.
That one Zune user out there sure is.
Exactly. It feels like the one service that wasn't really being talked about all that much. Everyone talks about, Apple Music, Spotify, Google Music, Amazon Music, like many of them have been discussed in the past couple of years. I don't remember hearing Groove Music mentioned in that context once.
I've forgotten that Groove Music was once called Xbox Music. And I have to say, why didn't they just keep it called Xbox Music? There's something very dated about Groove Music. I can't imagine, given all of my choices, that would be the one that I would choose. Like the name alone just sounds like something mom would say.
I have an embarrassing confession.
Founder of Rhapsody.
Yeah, so years and years ago, I founded Rhapsody, which was the first one of these, unlimited streaming services. And I like to think that I'm still very attuned to what's going on in the field. This is the very first time I personally have even heard of Groove Music.
I think that pretty much sums it up, right? Ireland's High Court said Tuesday it will ask the European Court of Justice for a preliminary ruling on the legality of the recently reconstructed arrangement that makes it easy for companies in the U.S. to transfer European user data between the two regions. A complaint led by Max Schrems caused the previous agreement to be thrown out. They had to build it up from scratch. A new agreement was put in place. That's now being tested in court. The question is whether enough is done to prevent European user data from falling under U.S. surveillance. Now, the court is expected to rule on the implementation of the agreement by particular companies, not the overall agreement. So the smart money is we don't think they're going to toss it out again, but they may put more restrictions on companies about how they implement it. Patrick?
So,
You're
yeah,
European.
sorry. It's really interesting because this is starting to be a thing that I've seen in the past, I would say 12 to 18 months, a trend going from, well, this is how they operate, we can't really do anything, to, well, taxes are too complicated, you would have to have like 20, however many people agree to change things. But now the topic of tax on those big companies is being discussed very seriously, and there's a clear desire on, and this is not just about Ireland, but it's one of the main culprits in those discussions. There's a clear desire to find a way to prevent these kinds of fiscal actions on the part of those big American internet companies. So I'm not sure exactly what's going to happen in this case specifically, but I thought it was a good opportunity to mention the fact that now things are getting really serious. And it seems that the momentum has shifted from, well, we'll see what happens, to we should find a way to make it work.
Fair enough.
Moving on to Google, or back to Google, really. Google launched Street View Ready, which lets anybody with an authorized 360 camera submit images to the Google Street View database. Now, Insta360's 8K 360 camera, which is going to run about $3,500 is the first to be certified. So it's not just any old camera, not just yet. Users will be able to control the camera from within Street View, though, and Insta360 will ship a USB accessory, if you happen to have one of those cameras, that can add GPS data to captured images.
So this is very cool that they're allowing for people who are, let's say that you're on an archaeological project, right? You want this 360 camera for all kinds of things. You're like, ooh, and let's submit to Street View so people can like walk around the dig and see what's happening. That's one of the kinds of examples they were giving. But yeah, this isn't like, hey, everybody run out and drop $3,500 on a 360-degree camera capable of living up to Google standards for its Street View program.
Right. And just even if they were saying that, not a lot of people are going to do that.
No, definitely not.
Still cool.
But I do like it. I like that they're opening it up. Hey, folks, if you want to get all the tech headlines each day in about 5 minutes, be sure to subscribe to dailytechheadlines.com, available as a podcast on the Amazon Echo in the Anchor app, and the Anchor version is available on Google Home. And that's a look at our top stories. Microsoft had its fall-autumn creators Windows mixed reality update. I'm sure they called it something slightly better than that. It was held today, and it was the last announcements before October 17th, when the new Windows Fall update, or Windows Autumn update if you're in the UK, shows up. On that day, we'll ship all these new Windows mixed reality headsets. And of course, Windows 10 will start supporting Windows mixed reality. Samsung was the big surprise announcement at this place. HMD Odyssey is a room-scale VR headset for Windows from Samsung. And if you're like, okay, yeah, I heard about the Acer and the Dell and the HP and Lenovo, they're all pretty much the same specs. Samsung outdid them. Two 1440 by 1600 AMOLED displays, 90 hertz refresh rate, 110-degree field of view, inside-out tracking, a built-in mic for Cortana, and built-in AKG headphones, plus the Windows motion controllers for $500. So a little bit nicer Oculus Rift for the price of an Oculus Rift. Coming November 6th, pre-orders today. What do you guys think of this? Rob, let's start with you. I'm curious.
Well, I don't know. I mean, I think it isn't radically better than the Rift, as you said. And I think that there is just so much friction when the price starts with anything that's higher than a 2. And ideally, if it starts with something that's higher than a 1, if you're looking for mass adoption, and great as the hardware is, I just don't think there's going to be an avalanche of people over to this until the titles and the content draw folks in, because that's what's happened really with every platform we've ever seen take off. It's the presence or absence of killer apps that really drive it. And this seemed like good. I mean, and you might know you probably know the specs better than me. As you said, it's a better Oculus Rift, but not crazy better, is it? Or is it?
Patrick, what do you think? I mean, I don't think it's crazy better. It depends on how you define crazy, but yeah, it's just a little better.
It's getting to the point where, to the specs where you're thinking this is a good VR headset. Like, this is actually something that can provide the kind of experience you want for extended use. But the most striking thing here is that we're still in a place where hardware-wise, if you want to have a really capable piece of hardware, then you're going to have to shell out the around $500, right? And this is what has happened with the HTC Vive and with the Oculus Rift. We're in the same price range, more or less, now that they have been discounted a little bit. And so, Samsung is trying to get a foot in the actual full VR headset, VR/AR headset market, as well as their initiative with the Gear VR on the mobile front. But this is not going to change a lot. I will say, however, I haven't looked at all of the other headsets from the other manufacturers, the Dell, HP, Lenovo you mentioned, but my feeling was all of them were less expensive, and so the specs were a little bit less high. So this gives Windows mixed reality its high-end Oculus Rift comparable headset, and they needed that, I guess.
From the company competing, or I'm sorry, for the company partnering with Oculus on the Gear VR.
Yeah.
Let's take a look at some of the other announcements here. Announced developer access to Windows Mixed Reality Steam VR Preview, so that developers can test their games to make sure that they work well, because Windows 10 Mixed Reality will support Steam VR, so you'll be able, theoretically, to run all the Steam VR games on these headsets. So developers can start testing that out. Now, consumers won't get access to that right on October 17th. Microsoft just said it'll happen by the holidays. So hopefully by the time you get one of these for a holiday present, you'll be able to at least join the preview to test Steam VR games. But that's an important thing for Microsoft to be able to beef up the catalog of VR apps that their headsets can take advantage of. They did announce Halo Recruit for VR coming October 17th from 343 Industries. It's not a full game, but you get to sort of walk around the Halo universe in VR. If you want to walk around other things in VR, they acquired Altspace VR. Those are the folks that did the presidential debates in VR for NBC last year. They're kind of a rival to Facebook Spaces. And Altspace VR is currently accessible with Google Daydream, Gear VR, Oculus Rift, and HTC Vive. It's been cross-platform. One would assume that Windows Mixed Reality will be added to that. Be interesting to see if Microsoft holds to its recent openness and leaves it on these other platforms. But Sarah, Microsoft really trying to move in and say, we're the place for VR. Do you think it's going to succeed?
Well, I don't know, but I don't think that any other company can claim that they've sort of figured out the market yet. It's such an emerging space, and the common complaint that I hear, it's clunky, or it's expensive, or it's expensive and clunky, or there aren't enough games / experiences yet, and it makes me nauseous. I hear the same things over and over, even though there are there's new hardware. Obviously, today is a good example of that coming to the space, but I don't see any reason why Microsoft can't be the leader here. This
ball game.
Yeah. I don't. I can think of things I'd rather do than experience a presidential debate in VR.
Yeah.
But it's just one example. Sure, they're trying stuff out. That's cool.
Yeah, I for years personally felt that Microsoft was like constitutionally incapable of any innovation whatsoever. They simply picked applications that were on their platform, either bought or strangled the innovators, put out a second-rate form of it, and then bundled it with Windows or their servers or something, until along came the Xbox. And hats off to them. That was and remains an amazing platform in which they've done an amazing amount of innovation. And there's a certain adjacency. Gaming consoles, clearly in VR, because VR is going to be very much about gaming. And so I definitely don't count them out here. And I also think, going over to the AR space briefly, there's a lot of things that are really impressive about the HoloLens. Probably, I'm not as crazy about it as some other headsets that I've tried in the aggregate, but they really leveraged a lot of the technology they've invested in heavily with the Kinect. Now, this is an AR space, but AR will be part of mixed reality by definition. They're really, really good at snapping virtual objects that you are meant to see in the physical space that you're inhabiting on that table or on that wall and keeping them there. And I understand that that's something that they've leveraged from Kinect. So between Kinect and the other things they've shown us in the broader Xbox universe, and the really heavy investment that they've been making in the AR side of mixed reality longer than most, and with more impressive products than most, I think this could actually be a place where they really show a lot of leadership, and that'd be cool. Competition's a great thing in any new platform.
Well, what I find fascinating is how they've opened up the hardware, manufacturing to multiple vendors, right? It's not just you get a Microsoft HoloLens and that's the end of the story if you want Microsoft mixed reality. And they're kind of doing what kind of propelled IBM PC through the home computer market of the 80s, when you literally had 7 to 8 different competitors all running similar but not the same architecture, and they were mutually incompatible with each other. And you became dominant because it became such a commodity object, right? The prices came down to such an extent that while the PC wasn't the best at gaming or certain things, graphics or anything, it was cheap enough for a multitude of people to buy into it, thereby creating a kind of just a huge user base that allowed them to leverage, and by them I just mean the PC industry, to leverage forward different things, with Microsoft moving into multimedia, CD-ROM, eventually internet, and a bunch of other stuff. But when you looked at when you kind of see the same thing with Google, where you have a multitude of different companies making Android devices, whether it's tablets, phones. It's not just Google's Pixel phone and that's all you get. And so it's interesting because you have Apple's, where they're vertically integrated. We're going to produce the hardware, we're going to produce the software, we're going to produce the experience, but it's all going to be within our ecosystem. And Microsoft says, well, we're going to be the gardeners. This is our garden, but you guys can come in and plant your eggplants, your roses, or whatever in our garden. But as long as you keep to the designated grow areas, we're all going to be good, and everything should work together. Cross your fingers.
And this is especially true for this area of VR, because we've had now headsets for 18 months or so, and it seems by most people's accounts, the thing that have been holding them back is the lack of interoperability. There are too many ecosystems for technology to take off, so Microsoft could be the one that brings them together and makes it work.
Hey, thanks to everybody who participates in our subreddit. You can submit stories and vote on them at dailytechnewsshow.reddit.com. Keep this conversation going. We keep talking in the post show on Facebook at facebook.com/groups/dailytechnewsshow and more. Let's check in with Mike Range. If you don't know Mike, he's hilarious, and he does a monthly look at the tech topics we talk about. Mike?
Hi, I'm Mike Range, and with September now over, it's time for the monthly Tech Views to look back at the month's big tech stories and hope enough time has passed for you to not be quite sure which facts I'm lying about. For example, Walmart is partnering with smart lock maker August to test a service that would have groceries not just delivered to your home, but put away inside your home. Just imagine, enthused a Walmart spokesman. You give the delivery person a one-time code to unlock your door and have access to your house, and you save all kinds of time that can be used to figure out a way to ditch the budget meeting at work and hover over your computer watching like a no-dose fueled hawk the intricate network of webcams you installed to make sure the delivery person doesn't step on the cat or drink your beer or eat a two-fingered scoop of peanut butter or spit in your milk or pick their nose before putting your apples in the fridge. For more, probably less disgusting stories, check out the full monthly tech views at dailytechnewsshow.com.
Thank you, Mike Range. Messages of the day. First one comes from Anonymous, who says, I've been following the story of Equifax, and being an application developer myself, I have a story that happened with me. You won't believe it. He didn't write that. He said, a couple of years ago, I was working as a Java developer for a subcontractor who provided development services for a known bank in Europe. The team in which I worked was composed of around 7 other Java developers and a project manager, each with a different experience and approach for development and bug fixing with no real standards to follow. And our job was to implement new features and from time to time fix bugs that were reported through a bug tracking system. That's the important part of his story. Banking system was at least 6 to 7 years old with at least 80 to 100 people who worked on it. It was a mess full of bugs. During one of the bug fixes I was doing, I discovered another small bug that nobody knew about, so I reported it to my supervisor. When he checked and found it had not been reported in the bug tracking system, he told me to ignore it and don't do anything unless someone reported it. His point of view was that the bug passed the verification phase that the bank's own IT department did when the feature was requested, and if we fixed it without them reporting it, the subcontractor would not be able to bill for that job. I was not satisfied with that response, and thankfully, not long after that, I quit the job. Surely many other big names follow this strategy until they fall.
Yikes. That is...
Yeah, the thing is, this is kind of terrifying and at the same time not surprising, which is even more terrifying.
Yeah, sadly, that's true.
Got another email from Jeff. Jeff is a new associate producer on Patreon. So thank you, Jeff. From sunny Salem, Oregon. I don't know if that's supposed to be a joke or not. It rains a lot there. I heard your discussion about Linux market share, says Jeff, and thought my anecdotal evidence as a 5th grade teacher might be of use. In the last 2 years, there's been a dramatic increase in the number of use of Chromebooks at my school. Last year, 6 Chromebook carts, has 36 Chromebooks in each cart, were purchased for the school. At the start of the year, an additional 6 carts were purchased. So that means each classroom of older students at my school is able to have their own cart, and we don't have to share. This has made it significantly easier to use Chromebooks, which my students use every day now in the classroom. Teachers are also growing much more comfortable with the Chromebook model and their preferred strategy, and they're preferred strongly by teachers and students over Windows computers at the school, at his school anyway. Love your show. Hope this helps shed some light on the market share discussion.
Certainly is another anecdote in that column of Chromebook use in schools is causing that Linux bump at net market share. So thank you for that, Jeff, and thank you for being a new associate producer of the show.
Woohoo!
Let's thank Rob Reid. Rob, thank you for joining us. I want to thank you personally for letting me come along for those first 8 episodes of the After On podcast. It was so much fun talking about the book with you. And in fact, if you had a recommendation for people who want to go back and listen to those, what are some of the great episodes you'd point out?
Well, just because we just talked about it, the very first episode was about augmented reality. And I talked to the CEO of a company called Meta, which is one of Microsoft HoloLens's fiercest competitors. So that's pretty topical. Another one is actually episode 2. The later ones were good too, but episode 2 is always fascinating to people who don't know much about it. It is a long interview with a neuroscientist at UCSF, who is creating video games that can actually potentially reverse the damage of horrors like Alzheimer's disease and ADHD and autism and so forth. And he has a game in phase 3 FDA trials right now for ADHD. And just the whole way that works with neuroplasticity and everything else is quite intriguing. And because the book was about a super AI run amok, the book that initially launched the podcast, I'd say episode 7 with James Merritt, who wrote one of the 2 books that really began the dialogue about super AI risk. That was just 2 weeks ago. It's a little chilling, but pretty fascinating. And that was a book was pretty heavily validated because none other than Elon Musk basically tweeted it to prominence right after it first came out.
And of course, you're going to continue on. So those first 8 episodes that I was on, we were talking about your book, but we've finished covering the book part now. But you're having such a good time interviewing these people, and you're getting such good interviews. What's coming up on future episodes of After On?
Yeah, so actually today I posted my first episode that does not have a loose affiliation with the book. And for folks who are thinking about going back, the episodes are set up so if you haven't read the book, it's not going to matter until the very, very end when you can tune out when Tom and I do have our conversation.
Yeah. As soon as you hear my voice come back.
Yeah, exactly. So today's episode is an interview with Chris Anderson, who was the editor-in-chief of Wired magazine for 12 years and went on to found one of the most innovative and important drone companies in the world, really, called 3D Robotics. And we talk all about drones. And we also talk about his brief hitch as the bass player in a band called REM. And you'll have to listen to find out if it was that REM or another REM. But it's pretty interesting. He's an amazingly accomplished guy. And all the way to age 25, he was somebody who had flunked out of schools, every school he'd gone to, and was working as a bike messenger and living in a squat and playing bass in a band called REM. And then he decided, you know, enough of all this. He became a computational physicist and then a bunch of other things, and editor-in-chief of Wired. So that's pretty inspiring. And then our conversation about drones is really intriguing. And then just real quickly, also in October next week, I got a great long interview with Tim O'Reilly, who is a huge publisher in tech. He's got a brand new book of his own coming out on next Tuesday when the interview will go up. He's a profoundly interesting thinker. Well, there's a lot I could say about Tim, but to keep it quick, shortly after that, the next week, I'm going to talk to Sarah Parcak, who invented the field pretty much, it's almost entirely accurate, of astroarchaeology. We were talking about in the VR thing about going around archaeological digs. This is gazing at archaeological digs from space and finding looters and also finding new sites. Then after that, it's going to be Chris Anderson, another Chris Anderson. This is the one who runs the TED conference. We're going to talk all about TED. The week after that, it's going to be gerontology superstar Aubrey de Grey, who thinks he can help us all live forever. In November, I've got Ev Williams coming up, founder of Twitter, co-founder or founder of Medium and CEO of Medium. Andy McAfee of MIT, who has done a lot of work on the future of potentially mass unemployment with automation, with a great book called The Second Machine Age. And that's just a little bit of what I've got coming up in October, November.
Go check it out, folks. after-on.com/podcast. Big thanks to Patrick Beja, of course, as always, for being here. Anything new going on at FrenchSpin.com?
I guess, well, I'll thank everyone who had some well wishes sent my way last week when I was a little bit ill. So that was heartwarming to see as I was missing the show. And on French Spin, I guess the Phileas Club, we just had a couple of weeks ago an episode about Venezuela with someone who actually had to flee Venezuela, now live, detailing the reasons and the context of the crisis. So I would invite anyone who's ever wondered about what's happening there. It's interesting / sad situation. Go check it out. It's at FrenchSpin.com.
Thank you, patrons, for making it possible for us to not only do the show, but to bring Sarah on every day, to start DTNS Labs, which we'll have more details about. We're going to have a roundtable show at the end of the month, and we're traveling. I'm going to be in London on Monday. That's starting to fill up. We also have Justin Robert Young hosting Daily Tech News Show at LA Podfest with Darren Kitchen, Jeff Kanata, and Allison Sheridan. So because of you, we are able to do more. The more you help us, the better the show gets. So we cannot thank you enough. Patreon.com/DTNS.
Our email address is feedback@dailynewsshow@dailytechnewsshow.com. We're live Monday through Friday at 4:30 p.m. Eastern Time, 2030 UTC at alphageekradio.com and diamondclub.tv. And our website, of course, is dailytechnewsshow.com. And I'm going to get that right tomorrow. I promise.
Back tomorrow with Scott Johnson. He's got a story. Talk to you then.
This show is part of the Frog Pants Network. Get more at frogpants.com.
Diamond Club hopes you have enjoyed this program.
That was a good show. Thank you, guys.
Indeed.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks. I'm so excited for the fact that After On is continuing. You've got a killer lineup, Rob.
Yeah, I'm excited about this month. I'm going to be doing, it's funny, I've decided to do most of the interviews in person whenever possible. So I am literally in the next 8 or 9 days going to Montreal because that's where Aubrey de Grey is going to be, Birmingham, Alabama, because that's where Sarah Parcak is, Boston, because that's where Andy McAfee is. I've also got unrelated trips to LA and Mexico City. I'm going to travel this month, but I like when I can to do the interviews in person. It's not always possible.
No, and it does help. Believe me, I know. I just, as you know, I don't like to travel all that much.
Well,
I like to have traveled once I'm there. I just don't like the getting there and back part.
Daily would be a little tricky too.
A balance between how much you travel for work, and I find that when I don't travel at all, I start to get really antsy. Even just it's like, I was working on the East Coast for work a few weeks ago, and I was like, it was a lot of work, but I hadn't been to the East Coast in a long time, and so I felt like, it's like I get a free trip. But if I travel too much for work or even for fun, I've had to go to a lot of weddings this year, and a lot of them are in far away locations, and
which sounds great, right? It's hard to complain about. So
great. Yeah, it's like, what could you possibly complain about? But it takes it out of you.
Yeah,
it does.
Yeah.
All right, what should we call this show, Roger?
We have tops. Our driverless cars begin human testing. Well, Microsoft mixed reality claims prove. Hollow. Microsoft never promised you a rose garden. It's true. They didn't.
I've got a nominee. Did you order the code shred? I don't know who got that line, but I did, Tom, and I loved it.
Hey guys, I am going to bounce. So sorry. Got to go back to my other thing.
Okay. Of course.
I'll see you in the morning though, and I guess I'm doing headlines too, right?
Oh yeah. Okay. Yes, definitely. Yeah. That's right. I mean, yes, you are. I just forgot that that was the new reality.
Hey, Tom, want me to do work that you would otherwise have to do tomorrow? Yes or no?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, cool. I'll talk to you guys later. Bye, everyone.
Cool. Bye. See ya. That's right. We have a bigger team.
I know. There are 3 bodies now. The Sarah
3-body problem.
It's the 3-body solution in this case.
Right. What was that from? That was from your book. No, right?
Yes. No, it's the title of a science fiction novel that I did.
I got it.
Yeah.
The Sarah Lanian Age, Microsoft Groovy mixed reality.
Did you order the code shred?
Did you order the code shred? Was so good.
So why don't we just use that? We'll make that.
All right. I'm good with that. Especially because I said it.
Especially because you said it. It was brilliant.
Wait, the 3-body problem. That was the one by the sci-fi novel by the Chinese novelist.
Yeah, Cixin Liu.
Yeah. Sorry, it's just...
That's all right.
Jeez. Well, I just said it. You missed me here saying it. That's all.
It's fine, Tom. It's fine.
That's not a criticism. Please, Rod.
Oh, my joints hurt.
Why do you?
Prick. Yeah. Every little prick. They already hurt before. From before.
Yeah, my joints were hurting after this weekend too. From all the moving stuff around in here.
It's a cruel master.
I'm committed to standing through my shows, but once the show is over, I am going to sit until I get used to this.
Does it hurt your back, or is it just your?
It doesn't hurt my back. No, it just makes my legs tired.
I get in my hip and my feet, but not my legs.
Speaking of ailments, are you feeling better, Patrick?
Yeah, I'm still. There's this weird cough still happening.
I hate that when it lingers.
But yeah.
Do you still cough like throughout the day a little bit, like the itch?
Like this,
like that?
Yeah, it happens. Oh God.
We shouldn't have brought it up. We made it happen.
Yeah, see when you. I was fine. What did you do, Tom?
You're fine. We ruined it. I'm so sorry.
I think it might be psychosomatic because when I think of it, I start coughing.
Yeah, it can be.
I got to bounce myself, I'm afraid. I got a call in about 9 minutes.
Oh, okay. Well, thank you again, Rob. It was great having you back.
It's great to be back. I'm always delighted to be on when you need a 19th person.
Yeah, well, let's scheme on the next appearance soon.
Absolutely. Yeah, well, maybe I'll send you the list of who's coming on, and if there's somebody that you think like, wow, that could spark a cool conversation, maybe we could do that.
Perfect.
Awesome.
All right. Thanks, man.
Thank you. See you guys.
It is funny to me, and I knew this was going to happen because it happened with CNET Live where we stood to do that show. It's funny just how tiring standing can be.
Yeah, I've stopped doing it.
You used to stand for all your shows?
No, standing, period.
Oh, just stand.
Yeah, yeah. I have my stand-up desk, and I used to do it for most of the shows, and now I can't be bothered so much. Sometimes I do it, but yeah, it is tiring.
I do. I'm hoping. My hope is that I'll get back in standing shape. After a while, it won't be that big of a deal.
If it's not too bad for your back, then it's okay.
No, it hasn't been so far, and I've got good shoes. I might get a mat too, just to help with that. So far, it's just been the leg.
Is there a place we know Scott has control of?
Yes, text message.
That's it.
Well, I don't want to go into it too much on the stream, but yes, you can get to him by text message. Anything else before we because I could share more with you about that after we shut down.
Nothing, nothing left with the show.
Well, thanks everybody for watching. We're off to a rollicking start here with Sarah having to travel. I think we figured out her audio issues from Monday in her home studio, so that should be fine tomorrow, knock on wood, with Scott Johnson, who, as you may have picked up from Patrick and I, has a tale to tell, or if you watch TMS this morning, you already know. But we will see you tomorrow, everybody. Goodbye.
Bye.